the two of you it's interesting because you have similar perspectives on some things, but then you have different perspectives on some things. And what the literature about blended families tells us is that for kids ages 10 to 14, it seems to have the biggest or the hardest impact. And Victoria, you were in that age group, and then Austin, you were much younger. So from having that different perspective, can you talk about that just a little bit, about what that was like at that age, but then maybe as you grew, as you got older, how your perspective shifted a little bit?
Yeah, when like I said, when you first came into our lives, it was a change for me. I didn't understand it until kind of a couple years later, and I kind of knew the grasp of things. Honestly, it was a very hard thing in my life. Sure. I love to make everyone happy, to please everyone. But when you have two dads and one of them loves to be called dad, it's kind of hard to tell the other one saying hi, dad.
Right.
Honestly, I feel like I kind of made your life difficult.
I would agree.
A little bit.
Just a little bit. Because like I said, I honestly didn't want to have a replacement dad. And I didn't want the struggle of going to back and forth from visiting my dad and being like, oh, my dad at home, he's taking care of me. But as time went on and as we've grown and how our family has grew, it's honestly been fantastic. You have treated me like your own biological son, and it's hit my heart very strongly. And honestly, it's an honor, and it's amazing for me to call you my dad.
I really appreciate you being vulnerable like this and sharing your emotion. The purpose of us doing this, of course, is to help people going through the same situations now be more successful than we were. And ultimately, we're incredibly successful as a family. But we've talked about some of the things that I could have done so much better. We could have been better. And the dad thing, the naming of the dad thing is so critically important. And with people I've worked with, I hear this over and over again. The new parent added to the family so often wants to be called dad.
Right. They want to be acknowledged.
And we strongly encouraged you to call me dad. Maybe it was even a little more strongly than that. And that was a mistake.
Definitely.
Because you demonstrated the conflict that causes in you.
Right.
You know you have a dad.
Right.
And you know who isn't your dad.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. What about for you?
So I could go on and on about how I treated Brian poorly. So I'll just say that.
Lots of creative ways.
I don't think it helped in my age because I was lots of hormones, teenager.
You would have been
drama.
doing some of that regardless.
Yes.
Yeah.
But my perspective on it is I thought growing up that when my parents got divorced, that you didn't like my dad and my dad didn't like my mom. So it was very much like you can't say anything about the other parent. And then also if the other parent talks about the other parent, it's kind of like, ooh, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I don't know. And like, that's a lot to process as a kid. Like, you shouldn't have to deal with that. But I definitely didn't like Brian probably, since you guys got together, probably till I was 19, which is a very, very, very long time. I never saw Brian as my dad. Kind of went into like, I don't even want to talk to him. I don't like him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I thought that because I was confused. 2, I didn't have anybody to talk to about it.
Right.
And if I did have someone to talk to about it, it was either my dad or you, and I was scared like
Right.
that you would talk bad about the other parent, so it was just awkward. I really feel like once I got older and I feel like you guys got better with communication and like, you know, raised Austin and my other brother Ben a little bit differently. I kind of saw like, oh, things are different. They were not like it was when they first got together. So it was easier for me to transition into like, okay, Brian's like my stepdad. Like, this is cool. He's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, definitely was not good. That I had a lot of feelings towards Brian. I hated him. Sorry. I hated you so much.
This is not a surprise.
Fair enough.
You're like, really? I was a very, very, very bad kid towards Brian. And I did it on purpose.
You were an unhappy kid.
I was very unhappy.
Yeah.
And I really feel like maybe if there was more stabilization or maybe like an easier transition with talking to like a therapist, like this is normal, or having friends that I knew had divorced parents, I feel like that would have helped because I definitely felt alone.
Right.
And then of course, when we would go to like mediation and things like that, I'd have my brothers in with me and I would have to be the one to pick. Like, okay, well, you tell me how it's like at your dad's. You tell me how it's like at your mom's. And it was scary.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to talk bad about any parent, but it's like they're kind of like pushing it like, who do you want to live with? Like, okay, well, your brothers are going to follow, so you're picking for them too. And that was like way too much of a responsibility, even as 13 years old.
Absolutely.
Too much. Pretty ridiculous, honestly. So I would just say, yeah, definitely teenage years was really rough because I'm going through my own thing with high school, like junior high school, and then hormones, and then boys, and like it was just this whole background thing of like my parents are divorced, like no one else is going through this, so that's not normal. And then you kind of have to feel like I kind of felt like I had to pick a favorite parent too. I couldn't like both, because they were separated and they don't like each other. So why should I like both? Kind of all over the place.
Yeah, and I'd like to add on, like you were saying about mediation, that was probably one of the hardest moments.
Absolutely.
When they asked me pretty much, who do you like to live with? And like I said, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, so I stayed quiet, and Victoria had to make that call for me. But yeah, when I feel like, we both made your life terrible.
And we're kind of the same, like, kind of like personality wise too, and like I just know we didn't like Brian, and so we were like, oh, let's like do this.
So you band together a little bit.
We kind of worked together and I think part of it, we honestly, for me, looking back, it felt like we had to pick a favorite parent. We had to pick a parent. We couldn't pick both.
Yeah.
And because you lived with mom and dad for the whole life, for 13 years, 9 years, sorry. And for me it was only 4. We kind of, I feel like we were making life more miserable for you to try to kick you out.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that.
To kind of be like, you know what, we're going to make your life like you
don't belong here.
Because we don't want you here. We have a dad. And
put him in his place.
Exactly.
And I would say too, like my parent that I picked to be my favorite was my dad. And I think the reason why is because he didn't get married as soon as you guys. And so it was an easier transition. It took a little bit longer. And so it was like, oh, okay, like, you know, he was sad about the divorce, like he's taking time to process, like, I don't know. So Yeah, I agree with Austin. Like, we wanted you out. We were like, just because it was such a hard transition, and you guys didn't discipline us the same,
Right.
and so it was like, why is Brian so strict? Like, why is he like this? This is horrible.
Yeah, I remember going over to visit my dad, and it was always, I kind of referred it to Disneyland. Because it was, what do you want? You can have whatever you like. You can
not strict.
Yeah,
not
that
strict
was the
is
opposite
important.
of what you were getting in our house. Yeah.
And so,
And as a kid, you're like, oh, this is nice. I
Uh-huh.
like this. I can get away with stuff. I can do whatever I want.
Right.
And then going back to your guys' house was like,
There were chores. And
so,
which isn't like, now I'm like, that's not bad. That's
right.
raising your child, you
Right.
know?
But as a child,
As a
different
child,
perspective.
yeah, it was
Absolutely.
hard.
so-